Your team is exhausted, you're exhausted, and everyone keeps calling it a capacity problem, but it's not. Yes, there are more priorities, more meetings, more information, more change, and more pressure to move quickly. Teams are stretched thin, leaders are stretched thin, everyone seems busy all the time, yet important work still struggles to get done. Most leaders think everyone's exhausted at work right now because there's too much work. I think they're solving the wrong problem. The organizations I see struggling the most don't have more work than everyone else. They have poorly designed work, and that's a very different problem. Most leaders mistake a design problem for a capacity problem. If we haven't met yet, I'm Dr. Alicia Granholm, a leadership strategist with a doctorate in strategic leadership, and I help leaders navigate the realities of modern leadership so they can build strong teams, think strategically, and still have time for life outside of work. Many organizations are asking people to operate within systems that were never designed for how humans actually work. Organizations that do produce sustainable high performance understand that results don't come from squeezing more out of people. They come from designing environments where people can think clearly, collaborate effectively, adapt to change, and recover from the demands of meaningful work. Today, I'm going to show you 5 ways sustainable organizations that get results are designed differently. Burnout has become widely accepted as the norm. In the past 4 years alone, burnout rates across sectors have increased by over 15%. And I'm guessing you're not surprised to hear this because you feel it. Here's the mistake we keep making though. We keep treating exhaustion as a personal issue for individuals to fix, when it's often an organizational design issue. Modern organizations demand enormous amounts of mental, emotional, relational, and attentional energy while providing fewer and fewer opportunities for recovery. Every responsibility at work consumes a finite human resource. Strategic thinking consumes cognitive energy. Managing people consumes emotional and relational energy. Meetings consume cognitive and social energy. Change consumes emotional energy. Interruptions consume attention. The challenge isn't that these activities are wrong. They're the work of leadership after all. The challenge is that most organizations are designed so that they stack one on top of another without creating sufficient space for focus, recovery, or thoughtful decision making. And while, yes, there are people who can bear bigger mental, emotional, and relational loads, everyone has limits. Collectively, we have overreached our limits. On top of this, because we're living in volatile, uncertain, and changing times, many organizations embrace staying nimble no matter their size, reacting to everything and racing to be first. Many leaders mistake reactivity for adaptability. Organizations are paying hidden costs for the way they pursue results, not to mention the visible organizational consequences: higher turnover rates, lower performance rates, lower morale, rushed decision-making that costs more in the long term. While we cannot control the external threats and challenges that our organizations face today, we can control the environments in which we lead and in which people work. The solution isn't lower expectations, it's to design differently. I've watched this play out with my own team. Our goal was to scale from 0 to more than 50 on-demand courses in 5 years. The team was stacked with talent and nobody was coasting, and yet they couldn't launch a single course, and people were exhausted, behind, and constantly reactive. What was needed was a better designed system. The moment I eliminated obstacles and barriers for people's work and began eliminating competing priorities, the same team produced more with much less stress. Same people, different design. The challenge is that most leaders inherit systems rather than intentionally designing them. Expectations around responsiveness, meetings, priorities, workloads, and decision-making often feel fixed because they've been in place longer than the current leadership team, but they are not fixed. You inherited these systems and you're also likely reinforcing them, and you have more power to redesign them than you think. Let me show you what this looks like. In practice, sustainable organizations that get results tend to do 5 things well. These are not employee benefits, they're organizational disciplines. First, create stability in the midst of uncertainty. Most teams aren't exhausted by uncertainty itself, they're exhausted by instability, unclear priorities, work living in people's heads, no consistent way to solve problems together. Every disruption then becomes a crisis because there's no foundation to absorb it. Building that foundation is its own conversation. I did a full video on it and I'll link it above. But the short version is this: while you cannot make the environment less uncertain, you can make your team stable enough to navigate it without capsizing. 2, protect uninterrupted time for deep focus. It takes on average 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus after any interruption. In a day full of meetings, notifications, and context switching, your team may not be getting a single hour of real focus to do their work. That's not a discipline problem, that's a design problem. And it starts with your own calendar. Block deep focus time before anything else gets scheduled, and then encourage your team to do the same. I did a full video on how to fix this, and I'll link it above. 3, eliminate competing priorities. Here's a quick diagnostic test. Ask 3 of your direct reports, separately and without warning, what the organization's top 3 priorities are for this quarter. If you get 3 different answers, you don't have a performance problem, you have a clarity problem. Competing priorities are one of the most expensive and invisible sources of team exhaustion and frustration because you have finite resources being pulled in multiple directions. So pick the 3 to 5 most important priorities, name them publicly, and then protect them relentlessly. 4, reduce single points of failure. If one person being out for a week or longer stalls critical work, that's not a capacity problem, it's a design problem. Have everyone create standard operating procedures, SOPs, for their work, not complicated ones, simple enough that someone who has never done the task before could step in and handle it while they're out. And then 5, design for sustainable workloads. The telltale signs are simple. People working through lunch, skipping PTO, and consistently working over 40 hours a week, those aren't badges of commitment. They are early warning signs of a system that is consuming more than it can sustain. And that goes for leaders too. Workload isn't just about headcount. It's about how work is structured, sequenced, and prioritized. None of these practices happen by accident. They require leaders who understand that their role is not to carry more work themselves, but to create the conditions for others to succeed. Most leaders have more influence over organizational design than they realize. Here are 6 questions to help you determine whether your systems are creating the conditions for sustainable performance or for burnout. How many hours a week does your team have for uninterrupted work time? What percentage of your team takes a proper lunch break, works an average of 40 hours a week, and uses up all their PTO at the end of the year? If I asked 3 of your direct reports separately without warning what the organization's top 3 priorities are this quarter, what would they tell me? When someone is out of the office or unavailable for a day, a week, or a month, what happens? What is your team's process for regularly solving issues? And lastly, but most importantly, how do you think about your value to your organization? Because a leader's identity impacts the team's productivity and health. Leaders need to spend most of their time making high-level strategic decisions, developing their teams, and creating the conditions for their teams to do their best work. This is how you design environments where people can think clearly, collaborate effectively, adapt to change, and recover from the demands of meaningful work. The exhaustion many leaders and teams are experiencing today is not simply the cost of working in a volatile, uncertain, and rapidly changing world. More often than not, it is the predictable result of how work has been designed. And the good news is that organizational design is not fixed. You inherited these systems. You may also be reinforcing them, and you have more influence over redesigning them than you realize. The leaders who create sustainable performance are not the ones who ask people to carry more. They are the ones who create the conditions for people to do their best work. Because leadership is not about getting the most out of people. It's about making great work possible. If you're watching this and thinking, we have some of those issues, that is worth paying attention to. I built a free leadership diagnostic that helps you identify exactly where your organization is breaking down right now. The link is in the description below. It'll take you 5 minutes and it'll give you instant clarity around where to start. If this video is helpful, like and subscribe. This channel is for leaders who are done reacting and who are ready to lead strategically. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.